And we're live. Good morning and welcome to the Committee on Innovation, Development, Economic Advancement and Business. This committee is gathered this morning in order to review language on bills already voted on. We will not be hearing testimony or anything like that today. Just a reminder that this meeting is being live streamed on YouTube for the public. So make sure that your mics are muted when you're not speaking, that your identifiers are correct and your name. I think we're all good with that by now. And we don't have all the big speech we usually have with our work sessions and our public hearings. So with that, what we will do is, I don't see Valley, but let's do introductions. So that will start with Representative McDonald.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Genevieve McDonald. I represent House District 134, which are the offshore islands of Penobscot Bay and Western Frenchman's Bay.
Hi, I'm Sarah Pebworth. I represent House District 133, adjacent to Representative McDonald's in the Blue Hill Peninsula, including Blue Hill, Brooksville, Brooklyn, Castine, Sedgwick, and Surrey.
I'm Senator Scott Searway, and I represent District 16, which covers Waterville, Winslow, Fairfield, Benton, Albion, Clinton, and Unity Township.
Good morning, Representative Jack Dearsham, representing House District 111, which is Madison, Solon, and Norridge Walk.
Good morning, Maine, from Gray, which I represent most of. I also have portions of Raymond, Casco, and I have all of Fry Island, which is just a little bit offshore in Big Sebago Lake.
Representative Tavis Hassenfuss, House District 81, Winthrop, Reedfield, and part of Monmouth.
I'm going to guess that it's my turn. Good morning, everyone. I'm Sue Bernard. I represent District 149, which is Caribou, New Sweden, and Westmanland, located in Aroostook County, the Crown of Maine.
And good morning, I'm Representative Tiffany Roberts, your House Chair, representing House District 6, which is the majority of North and South Berwick. With us today, we also have our committee analyst, which is Ms. Rachel Olson, and our committee clerk, which is Ms. Jody Breton. And Jody, if you could just let everyone know how to contact you if they have any issues.
Sure. You can contact me by phone, 287-4880, or you can email me at jody.brett. Actually, it's easy to do it at idea@legislature.maine.gov. I'll actually get them both ways, but I usually use the idea one.
Okay, great, thank you. And just a reminder that the chat function is to be used for technical difficulties only and not for any substantive discussion. And I believe we have Representative Collmore joining us. So we'll just hold on a second. See the little bubbles going. She's almost there. Representative Collmore, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, sorry, I had some issues connecting this morning and I'm not getting my camera to work right now. I'll fix that as we go. I'm Representative Amanda Collmore. I represent House District 106, Pittsfield, Clinton, and Detroit.
Okay. That being said, we are going to move into language review and I'm going to hand it over to Ms. Olson.
All right, good morning, everybody. A couple of things to come back to you today that I'll need some guidance on before being able to complete. So we're going to start with LD 857, which is an act to create a municipal grant program to promote sustainable economic development. I'm going to put it on the screen. In addition, while I'm doing that, just as a note that I did send out a couple of emails with fiscal notes and other language reviews to members of the committee yesterday. while it is helpful for me to see your response, because then I can check that I know I've gotten it, if you will. Really what I need is if there is an issue for you to let me know, so I'll know to bring it back up. Okay, so the bill you have in front of you, yes,
Can you just bump that up a little bit?
sure.
Thanks.
Okay, so this is LD 857. This was an ought to pass as amended. It was a unanimous report of those that were present and voting. And the recommendations for the amendment were to add a mention of the 10-year plan, which you'll see here is the main economic development strategy 2020 to 2029. I'll admit the revisor's office might want me to add the rest of that title in there, but we'll see what they say. Or successor economic development strategy. So that's mirroring, excuse me, the language that is here about the measures of growth or successor report, as it may not always continue to be the report of that name. And then the change, the significant amendment change was to change the funding source to be the American Rescue Plan, or to federal funds. At the time, I'm not sure we actually knew the title of the plan. So I've made that change here, but the question then comes that I have to go back to you guys on is, and we've had similar bills. So the change was to add federal funding. Originally, it had funding from municipal revenue sharing, which was struck by the sponsor at the time. And the change was to bring in federal funding. So the question comes is the intent of the program to be limited in duration, so that its only funding is the ARP funds, and that once those funds are expended, that the program, the municipal grant fund and its program would go away? Or was the intent for the program to continue and for its initial funding to come from federal dollars, with the possibility of other funding sources later in the future, once ARP funds have been spent? So that would be the major question that I have to come back to you to address. If it's
So I would say, and then I can call on committee members. In the first paragraph, it says it's established as a non-lapsing fund.
Yep.
So my understanding would be that the funds created and propagated by any federal funds that could then be carried over if not used, if it's not lapsing. So it doesn't go back, but we're not directing any additional revenue going toward it at this time, kind of like what we dealt with the nurse faculty fund that was created and never funded. We could get to a point where this fund is empty, but it's still a non-lapsing fund, so it remains a fund. If any other committee members have input, Senator Searway.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just was thinking possibly you could sunset it and have a reevaluation of where the funds should come from. I don't know if that's a thought, but I guess it's okay the way you mention it too. I guess we can do it that way.
Representative Austin?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Number 5, how do you read that? Does that impact the language of funding in any way? It says excess of 50,000 in a legislative biennium, so it sounds like it pushes it out their ways. I don't know how you read it.
So it's originally drafted as an ongoing program,
Okay.
but with the amended language to have the funding be federal funds, my question back to the committee was, in doing that, was the intent to make it in limited, which it's not as it's originally drafted. If, as it's originally drafted, the intent was for the program to continue to stand, to be a non-lapsing fund with these caps on the biennium, it could operate as Representative Roberts put out, that once the program would exist, but short of any other federal funding coming, once the funds were expended, which could be more than 2 years, and depends on how many applications and the rules established by the department, that it would just sit as a program unfunded on the books. Language could be added to say the fund consists of all money allocated for inclusion in the fund from federal funding sources and other funds allocated as appropriate, or from other sources. You could add from the state when available. So not necessarily directing a specific funding source, but leaving the option for other funding sources down the road.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
if I may, I hope I'm not being too premature, but I guess for the work that has been put into it, I would hate to see it not be able to be at the ready if and when there were other funds and they were so allocated. I don't know how the rest of the committee feels, but sometimes we work so hard to get these things established, and I certainly agree with a sunset to evaluate, but to completely have it go away, I'd be kind of, seems like we just spin our wheels sometimes. So I look forward to your other thoughts out there, please.
So Representative Austin, are you alluding to the language that Ms. Olson just suggested from federal funding sources or any other funding sources?
As allocated or
Yeah,
appropriated
as
by the state.
allocated? Is that what you were thinking?
Yes, Madam Chair, and I really would like to hear how the rest of our members feel.
Perfect.
I don't usually shoot off quite so quickly this early in the morning, but I just thought I'd add that while I could. Thank you.
We've got a couple in the queue here. So Representative Hassenfuss.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My recollection, and I wish Representative Bailey was here because we discussed this a little bit, was that the original drafting of it with funding coming from revenue sharing that everybody was against, and I believe that I signed on this as a co-sponsor, but one of the things I said was like, I don't want to do it if it's going to be revenue sharing as the funding source. And then so when it came back up, when it came to us for the public hearing, is when it was proposed that it come from federal sources. And, and then I think that this committee felt that we really liked this program, giving different communities the ability to apply for this grant. But the funding source outside of the federal funds was never really vetted out from our committee. And I think it was kind of well, let's see how things go, because I know DECD is doing some other things too, and then see where we can pull funds from in the future. So I think if we did add some language that say, initially it'll be through the federal funds, and then can be, and then if federal funds are no longer available, which they very well may continue to be available in the future for different projects, but if they're not, then I'm not sure exactly what language to do, but something where, that the funds can be pulled from some other revenue source that's not revenue sharing. So anyway, I just wanted to kind of give us the summary of what my memory is telling me.
So if I understand Representative Hassenfuss, you would be in agreement with Representative Austin in putting in language that says or other funding as allocated, because as allocated would have to be by the legislature.
Yeah, I think that's fine. I don't think we really worked out how to be super prescriptive with the funding, other than saying, well, let's do the federal funding now, see how things go. And then, so I think language just saying that, let the legislature figure out funding later on will work.
And I'm just going to jump in. One is that we can do very broad language. That's very possible. And then two, I did add in, because we're talking about limited sort of one-time federal funding at this point, that an unallocated section here at the bottom, that's its initial source of funding would be coming from ARP funds. So that unallocated section would go forward in the short term immediately to let them know that this is where we want the money to come from now to get the program up and running. And then we can keep or add, in this case, very broad language that would just allow it to be funded from other sources that are not yet determined down the road.
Okay, Representative Collmore.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think I agree with Representatives Hassenfuss and Austin on this as well. While I really don't like having something on the books that isn't funded, I think the idea of, especially something this important that is helping with economic development, which our state severely needs, that adding language on that allows it to be allocated from other sources, as long as it's not from municipal sharing, I think will be very beneficial to allow the program to continue.
Okay. Senator Seaway, are you raising your hand because you're in agreement, or do you have another idea?
Well, I just think that maybe it should be redirected back to Idea Committee for review for funding and other sources if it needed or whatever, something like that.
Yeah, so my personally only other concern there would be we don't know how long it would take for the federal funding to be
Right.
expended. So it would kind of be impossible to do.
Yeah. All right. I mean, I'm for it. I think that if we can just add the language and not include revenue sharing.
And that the revenue sharing would have to be as it's written in the original bill, it would have to be directed. So that would take another act to change that portion. So by adding the broad language, that's not including that. It would not, you'd have to see language to adjust municipal revenue sharing if that was ever considered again.
Yeah.
Okay, so in the essence of time and consensus here, if we can do hands down and hands up, only if you are not in agreement with this. Representative Collmore. Oh, nope. No hands up. Okay, so it looks like we are good there, Ms. Olson.
Okay. So then my only last point on this one is paragraph 4, preference and awards. It is duplicative of what's the program's purpose. So the fund is to provide the purpose of the fund is to provide funding for municipalities for projects that further the goals of sustainable economic development as outlined in the growth councils and their report and the development strategies and report of the state. And then it says preference should be given to projects that further the goals of the council as outlined in those reports. So I think that's basically being redundant. So my suggestion would be to strike the preference and awards portion, as the purpose of granting awards is for these goals.
Okay, so we have redundant language that we're looking to strike. Can we have hands raised if there's an issue with that? Representative Collmore.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The only thing that I would say is where we are identifying above that the measures of growth and the main economic development strategies, we would need to take, what I like in number 4 is that it says or successive report. And so if they're in the future, we have different named reports, we'd want to make sure that those are the named reports in this. So we should include that language above.
In number 1.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure if I know what you're referring to. The or successor report is here, and then also here.
Apologies, I was looking in the very first paragraph, not on number 1.
Okay, sorry. I just want to make sure I wasn't missing something.
No, my apologies.
Okay, so Representative Collmore, you're good as is here.
Yes.
Suggested. Representative Ducharme.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Was this the one that we were going to have language in that instructed them to kind of keep an eye out for the smaller rural communities?
I don't believe this was the one. I think, were you thinking about the land bank?
That's the one. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
I had in my notes on it, LD 857, I had written down, what about the small communities? So, because I'm always thinking about them. So
Now
that's
you're
why I
pulling
asked.
into my memory bank early in the morning.
All right, good.
Okay,
Thanks.
so you're all set there. Representative Hassan Fuss.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just, Representative Bailey, who was a sponsor of this bill, I think is coming in a few minutes. So I don't know if we want to just touch any of these questions, ask of him, and then vote it through, or if we want to just go now and confer that the intent.
Changes would typically be a majority committee report vote. It wouldn't be necessarily bringing the sponsor in, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it does. I just wanted to make sure, as far as our recollection of what the ongoing funding was supposed to consist of, and just plan there, just to clarify that. But I think we're all in agreement with it anyway. So.
Okay.
And I would say these are not substantive changes. It's really just making sure that I understood the intent of the committee. So not a vote. And then I just want to, while we're waiting, or not waiting, but I'll just mention that, again, we struck the municipal revenue sharing and then added an unallocated section to make clear that the initial funding is going to come from the American Rescue Plan funds. So any funds derived for relief and effect. And to Representative Ducharme's point, we did hear earlier, DECD, they, as we know, they don't grant money directly. They work through other agencies. So as this is a municipal program, I imagine they'll work with groups that they have in the past, which could include those local regional development authorities that they have talked about before. Just as a note.
Representative Austin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want you to help me with my memory too, please, for a second. Was this the particular one and not the land bank where I referenced if there had been a site condemned within a town that the federal funds could come in, a grant? The town of Gray could.
That was the land bank. That was land banks.
That was land bank too.
That was also land banks.
For heaven's sakes. Okay.
Yeah, this one was actually this one's a little bit old, so.
Is there any reason why, could this be used for something like that? No. Yes. Do you think? Any thoughts again?
I'm not going to speak for the director of the Office of Community Development.
Oh, sure you can today.
So I would say, it's to further the goals of sustainable economic development as outlined in those two reports and the work of the council. I think that there are a lot of goals that you could align with within that. Of course, the cap, that you do have a $50,000 cap, so that will, by its nature, limit some type of projects.
But it could be seed money for the town to get started, I would think. I mean, I know you can't say yes for sure, but I mean, it might be an avenue to consider. I'm just trying to not rule anything out. Okay, thank you.
Okay, so if those are all the edits, Ms. Olson, can you unshare for a minute just so I can?
I sure can.
See
waiting for your guys' direction on that.
Okay.
I know you wanted to see it. So
can we just do a show of either physical or a virtual hands if you're in agreement with all the changes or the edits that we've discussed? So, okay, I think we are good to go.
Okay, so I'll add the language, the very broad language, that other possible allocations other than federal fundings are possible in the future, just so the option remains open. And I will remove the preference in awards as it duplicates the purpose of the fund in doing that.
Okay.
And then everything else.
We are joined by Representative Bailey and Senator Curry. If you'd like to introduce yourself.
Sure. Representative Kyle Bailey, House District 27, part of Gorham and a small part of North Scarborough.
And good morning, everyone. I'm Senator Chip Curry, and I represent the 26 rural, coastal, and island communities of Waldo County.
Senator Curry, would you like the gavel or?
You're doing great. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Okay, Ms. Olson, we can move on to the next one if you're ready.
Hey. Let me.
Just while she's looking, I just want to let you know I'm going to be on the other committee too. So criminal justice. So I got a busy day there. Thanks.
Okay. So the next one that I have to bring back is LD 1005. And this is the baby bond bill, as its nickname. This was a resolve originally establishing a commission to study strategies to assist working class families in building wealth and achieving upward mobility. The amendment, which was voted at the time of voting, 10 in favor, 1 ought not to pass, and 2 absent. So the 10 in favor of the amendment was to strike the bill, to keep the summary without the commission, with a report back of January 15th of 2022, with the option to report out legislation. So when drafting that, what became clear is once we struck the bill and kept the summary without the commission, I need to know who is being directed to conduct the study. So who's the intended group? So is it an agency, a commission?
Looking for hands on ideas.
Stakeholder group?
And then
Whose
we'd
bill
have
is
to.
it?
This was, I don't know why I'm trying to search my memory when it's written in front of me.
Representative Riley.
So I'll mention that in the original bill, the commission was directed to work with a couple of different agencies. So that included the Department of Administrative and Financial Services, the Bureau of Revenue Services, and the Governor's Office of Policy, Innovation, and the Future. So in the original bill, the commission could invite input from those groups as it was written.
Representative Hassenfuss, I'll let you go before me.
Yeah, my question is just for Rachel, sorry, Ms. Olson. Did the original bill describe who the committee would be? Because if my memory serves me correctly, the bill was drafted to look into and study this. Did it describe who the members of the study were in the original draft of that?
It does. So the commission would have been made up of a member from the Joint Standing Committees of Labor and Housing, Health and Human Services, Taxation, appointed by or senators from those, representatives from Labor and Housing, Health and Human Services, and IDEA. And then 2 members of the public who represent low-wage workers and recipients of public benefits, a representative of business and industry, and a representative of higher education, and a representative of a trade union. So it was really a stakeholder commission.
Yeah, that feels like it might be more than just a simple changing of the language if we incorporate all of those individuals in that. Am I incorrect in that?
I think if you brought all of those people back, you'd be really going back towards the original bill as written, as establishing a commission. So versus directing someone to go do a study.
Okay, I had 3 hands go up at once, so I'm just gonna guess here. I'll start with Senator Curry.
Thank you. I'm given from where we were with the original bill, I'm thinking that, and I am trying to do this on memory, I don't have it written down. I am thinking we are imagining a legislative study that have this go on the study table.
And who would the who be?
Yeah, we're back to that.
Representative Bailey, do you have a who?
I guess my first question was, why did we strip the legislative study from the bill? Was there a reason in the notes somewhere that says why we did that? I realize that there's a physical cost involved in having a legislative study versus, simply assigning this work to an existing agency to using existing funds. I can't remember if that was the reason why, or if there was some other reason. Do we have that somewhere in the record?
It was a commission, not a legislative study. It was.
Oh.
Representative Ducharme.
Thank you. I was thinking that since it's talking about potentially some sort of bonds and so forth and so on, what if we send it back to GOPIF and have GOPIF work with FAME?
Okay. Representative Collmore.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was thinking the same thing. I feel like because of how this money would be allocated, FAME would be involved quite a bit, and to have them included with the study would be very beneficial.
Okay. Representative Austin. Would you like to weigh in on what's being proposed on the table, or do you have another idea?
Well, I also, excuse me, I also thought of FAME, but I was wondering, I don't know if this would be irregular, but would there be any, I would think there might be some value to having a conversation with some of the Alphon people. Would they be a resource that might be quite valuable in not necessarily copying, but just some of the, specifics that they have gone through or different offerings. So I don't know, I just throw that out there again for consideration.
I'll just add that the Harold Alphon grants, although a private funding source, I believe in some way operate with FAME. So there's a connection there. So you might, by going with FAME, you might inadvertently, if you will, also get those individuals or that expertise and how that's administered.
Okay, so before I take more hands, it sounds like we have an idea on the table of GOPIF in collaboration with FAME conducting a study, and I will go to Representative Hassenfuss and see where you are on that.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I'm just going back, trying to recreate what our thought process was when we decided this, and I think it was almost so obvious initially the who, in that it would be the commission, that was kind of defined by the original bill text, and then we just said, okay, let's let the commission study it, put it on the study table for AFA, and that was the thought behind this. I can't recall that exactly, but I don't recall ever talking about any other agency or any executive branch department looking into this. So that's kind of my thought of what our intent might have been. And I think that might be a better avenue to go than to direct an agency to study something that's kind of more of a legislative study type function.
Okay, Representative Bailey. You're on mute.
Yep. I just communicated with the bill sponsor, and he's looking at his notes, but he thought the discussion we had was about having OPLA conduct the study. So just wanted to throw that in there for the committee.
I will, so if that was the intent, which is not my takeaway. I hope that you're all aware that OPLA is a nonpartisan office who cannot make policy recommendations. And therefore, as it's written with the summary, it includes suggested legislation as well as recommendations. So that would not be appropriate for my office to do.
Yeah, Representative Collmore and then Representative Ducharme.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm going to use my ignorance as a freshman legislator here and just ask, what is the process of a legislative review instead of directing somebody else to do it?
Do you mean what's a legislative study? Is that what you mean?
Yes.
I'm going to pull up our handout and we can all take a look at it. And then also the joint rule, because it references it, so we can all be on the same page. Oh, that's a little too big for me. Okay. So a legislative study is undertaken by any group of people that uses any legislative resources, requires legislative appointments, includes legislators, uses legislative study funds, or involves legislative staff, except for some limited exemptions adopted in Joint Rule 353, which we can look at in a minute. There's an exception where a non-legislative study could have up to 2 legislators and not be considered a legislative study. That's what they're getting at. Legislative studies go on the study table prior to final approval in the Senate, and they're reviewed by the Legislative Council, who decides what studies to authorize. And legislative staff are assigned only to legislative studies that conform to the Joint Rule 353. There are non-legislative studies, as mentioned, so a stakeholder group study or an ongoing board or commission. So an ongoing commission, like the Commission on Racial and Indigenous and Tribal Populations would be an example of an ongoing commission. There's an agency study, which is, I think, the one we're more familiar with, and then a staff study, but then that's by nonpartisan staff. They can provide research on legal and policy issues, an analysis and summary, but staff studies cannot make recommendations or put forward legislation. So in order to do a legislative study, you'd have to meet the guidelines of legislative studies as outlined in Joint Rule 353, which defines what they are and how to establish them. But in particular, there's the appointment of members and chairs and the committee size, which is really what was being put forward in the original bill. With that sort of prescribed outline.
Representative Collmore, does that answer your question there?
Yeah, I just, the original resolve was a commission to do that, which would establish a group that could be ongoing. I'm trying to make sure I understand this correctly, but where a legislative study is, it's similar to the bill's original intent of establishing a committee, or a commission, except we wouldn't actually establish one that would be ongoing. It would just be a one-time study. Is that the big difference between the two?
Yes. I think,
okay.
Yes. I think at this point more of a naming than
So I guess my question would be, could we do this as a legislative study, identifying it as the same people who are identified as a commission without making it a commission?
That's certainly within the committee's decision-making ability. Yes, that would require reconsideration of the bill. That's a substantial change, substantive change. Excuse me.
Representative Ducharme, you've had your hand up for a bit there. Sorry.
No problem. Just been listening to the conversation. I was just going to say that I think by stripping out the commission, if my memory serves me right, I was thinking that it was going to be a study so we can find out the right things to do. The establishment of a commission kind of, in my mind, kind of sets up something that is kind of never ending, kind of evergreen. There are hundreds of commissions that have been established by state government that do nothing. And so establishing another one, it just doesn't seem like the right thing to do. Let's get real people that, are going to be invested in this to do the study and bring back real solutions to this problem. I certainly think it's a problem, but I don't know that establishing a commission is the right way to do it, because then it becomes, by looking at the folks who would be on the commission, then it becomes a political football, and then you get nothing done. So if you go to committees and FAME, you're more likely to get some traction on a real program that will work. That's my objection to establishing a commission.
So I just want to check in with everyone before we keep going down here. There has been a suggestion that has had some support around GoPIF and FAME doing conducting this study. Can I get a raised hand, virtual or in real life, if you would be in agreement with that change, or would not that change, that language? So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4. Keep your hands up, please. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we have a majority there. Which seems like that's the way that we're going to go. Is there any other discussion on this? No? Okay. Ms. Olson, is that sufficient? You're on mute.
Thanks. I wasn't saying much. I was thinking, but thank you. I think because there was no authority identified that, and that is significant. I'm not sure if this is something that should be reconsidered, as it's adding it's new information that wasn't put forward in the original amendment. And I think in order to move forward with it just as a language change, I think everyone that voted for the bill would need to be in agreement, I think.
Okay. Representative Hassenfuss.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You're probably going to mute me after this recommendation, but one of the beauties of this year is that everything was recorded on YouTube. And so I'm wondering if just reviewing the work session on this particular hearing could refresh our recollection of what we intended. And I don't know if we want to, take the time to do that and then get back to this or not. I'm fine to go whichever way the committee is leaning, but that's just a.
So the chair would remind the representative that we are under very limited time to meet, meaning pretty much this week.
Yeah.
We'll hold on to that for a second. And Representative Collmore.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was just going to ask Ms. Olson, who was on the ought to pass on that? You said there were 10 members?
Yes, I did. I'll make it easier. The ought not to pass was Representative Austin, and Representative Andrews and Senator Lucchini were absent. Jody, if you had that vote sheet at hand, if you could let me know if those individuals registered their votes or not.
Which LD was that, Rachel?
1005.
Do you have the date that we heard that?
Yes. The work session was the 29th of April.
Representative Collmore, does that give you what you're looking for? Or are you waiting for further confirmation?
I was waiting to hear if the others had registered that way too, because if we all have to agree, I'm wondering how that will work today, or if we're going to have to reconsider to change who.
Senator Lucchini and Representative Andrews did not vote. So it was unanimous except for Representative Austin, who voted ought not to pass.
Ms. Olson, is there Is there language that would be inserted there that would not be substantive enough that would require a reconsideration, or is anything we do going to require that?
I think if the members who supported it were all in agreement of directing a group and not creating a legislative study, but moving forward with a study done by somebody that everyone was in agreement with, that might be enough. Again, I'm not the rule maker on that. It's really a matter of interpreting what's considered substantive or not. So that's not a line that I can necessarily draw. I can just give that interpretation.
Okay, Senator Curry.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm wondering, given that we didn't have unanimous, or we didn't have everyone who voted for it vote again, and I'm hearing Senator or Representative Hassenfuss's desire to check it out. And one other concern I have is I don't know where GoPIF is on this, and it's not on their radar. FAME I'm a little less concerned about for some reason. I think they've been monitoring us and they've been part of it, but GoPIF I feel a little less comfortable assigning them, not knowing where they are on this. So what I'm wondering is if we give ourselves a Thursday and say Thursday 9:30, we get answers before then, and we do a work session for language review on this, doing a Thursday morning. I want, if there's a better route forward, then I'm happy to get it all done today. But that's the only thing I'm wondering.
Okay, Representative Ducharme.
I was wondering if Representative Bailey wanted to weigh in. He was one of the sponsors, so I was just wondering if he had thoughts on it.
Representative Bailey.
I'm fine waiting until Thursday. I'd also, given that Representative Hassenfuss and I were the only ones with a problem with GoPIF and FAME, my conversations with GoPIF in the last week around studies has been that they are inclined to advocate against taking on any studies because they already feel overwhelmed. So if perhaps there was unanimous consent for simply assigning it to FAME and FAME only rather than FAME and GoPIF, that seems like I would be just fine with that. If we just dropped the GoPIF, we could just move it on today and be done with it. But if not, then perhaps we want to take till Thursday to review. But that's my thought.
Representative Austin.
Seeing how I was the only man standing against this, I'm wondering if it was because of wanting it to be handled the way we are now headed. So I'm certainly leaning this way, and I'm not sure, did Representative Bailey say just, maybe perhaps we could have just FAME? I missed that little bit. Okay, that's exactly what I was thinking. If the other GoPIF is not appropriate, I mean, certainly I would think FAME can certainly give this where they are presently handling the Alphon, as Ms. Olson has shared. I think that might be a good match right there, and just get this moving.
I'll just add, if it's only FAME, there may be a problem with FAME issuing recommendations and suggested legislation.
I guess can I challenge you just a little bit, Rachel?
No, that's fine. That's me just thinking out loud.
No, that's okay. That's okay, because I almost anticipated that would be the next thought, but they handle so much alone already. I just wonder.
Oh yeah, I wasn't thinking about their ability to take on the work, although hopefully Mr. Norbert will at least forgive me for that. I was thinking about their ability, similar to the conversations we had with MDF, about their ability to initiate policy, to make policy recommendations. I'm not, that's something I would need to just reach out and get confirmation on. GoPIF certainly can make policy recommendations. But I just mentioned, I mean, FAME is in statute. I'm just going to toss that out there. So I would need to just double check on that.
Well, and I appreciate that. I just, in thinking over the years of all the initiatives that they have been so highly involved with, I'd be interested in hearing the answer. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to pause for a second here and go back to Senator Curry's proposal that we check in with various stakeholders, sponsors, etc., and circle back with this on Thursday. Can I get a raise of hands if that is the committee's wish?
I would just push back a tiny bit and ask what tasks do we hope to accomplish between now and then, and is it possible to do those during a break today? I mean, I think we can find the timestamp. We can watch something at 1.5 or 2 times the speed, if that was important, or talk to agencies in between if that was important. Right now, we're not coming back on Thursday. Is that correct?
Oh, no, we will be coming back on Thursday.
Okay, then sure, buy us 2
Well,
days.
I'll just mention, of course, with the committee's permission, I can reach out to both FAME and GoPIF with the language as currently written without a group identified for their, I'm going to say input, but it might just be, are you allowed to do this? Not do you want to do it, but are you allowed to do it? So I could certainly do that. I can do that on a break as well if we wanted to come back this afternoon after a break.
Okay, the committee, where are we? Do we want to look at this on Thursday or later this afternoon on a break? Let's do today. Can you raise your hand?
Both hands means I'm game for either.
Okay. Ms. Olson, why don't we aim to try to take care of this today? If you could send something off, and then when we finish going through what we're going through here, we'll determine a time to circle back.
I can do that.
Okay. Okay. So I guess moving on to the next one.
Shifting documents. Okay, LD 1476, resolve directing the Maine Economic Growth Council to create and share measures of progress. This is Representative Geer's bill. This was, again, unanimous of the committee that was present at the time. Absent were Representative Andrews, Senator Lucchini, and Senator Searway. I don't know if they called their register to vote. This was an amendment put forward by Representative Geer, who had worked with MDF as well on that language. So most of the changes were simple enough. And so we kind of restructured. Now the Department of Economic and Community Development is in charge with the working in collaboration with the Maine Economic Growth Council, and added the Maine Center for Business and Economic Research and other organizations or agencies as necessary. And this is directing them to create measures of economic and social progress in the state and to create a dashboard a graphical user interface or dashboard for the purpose of being able to better use these for groups to stakeholders, policy committees, to use that data more effectively. So this is a resolve, and this was a problem going through Ross and no one, including myself, caught. So as a resolve is limited in nature. So in 2 or 3 years, it'll sort of disappear and people will forget about it. The work being directed by the resolve would most likely not disappear, so that's not a problem directing them to do the work. The question comes here with the report. So directing in a resolve for the department to report annually to the legislature on this work, because it's a resolve in 2 or 3 years, that's going to fall off the radar. So the reports probably may stop coming. If because it's temporary in nature, if the desire is to have a longer term program that's reported on, or to have these elements become more formalized, then you can add this addition at the bottom, so that the resolve would direct the department to submit a report on their work of creating the measures of economic and social progress in the state, and on designing and implementing the dashboard. So a report on their progress in doing those, including the budgetary requirements and identified sources of funding, which they're being directed to generate. As well, and then the report could also include recommended statutory changes in order to incorporate the measures of economic and social progress and the dashboard into existing law. And then the ability to report out a bill by this committee in the second regular session. And that's how you could then build in annual reporting in a long-term way. You can't take a resolve and turn it into an act. So this would be a way to get annual reporting, and the possibility of incorporating elements that come out of this resolve into statutory language, if that was the intent. If the committee is comfortable with the annual reports most likely falling off the radar in 2 or 3 years, then it's fine as it's written. But if the intent was to really have those annual reports in a long-term way, or to see this become more formalized into statute, the language that I proposed would be one way of doing that.
Okay, so I don't see hands up for discussion, so can I get a show of hands? Ms. Olson, can you unshare so I can see if everyone is in agreement with the paragraph added? And who was on that report? Oh, you're on mute.
Sorry. Absent on the day of the vote were Representative Andrews, Senator Lucchini, and Senator Searway. I don't know if any of those individuals submitted a vote. I can check, or Jody. I usually ask Jody to do it because she has them more quickly at hand than I do. But
can I get would you like?
1476.
But everybody else was on the majority report. Okay, so can I get a show of hands if everyone is in agreement with the language that Ms. Olson has added at the end of the bill? Is that Representative Hassenfuss? Okay. And Senator Searway, did you not vote on this one?
He did vote, and it was unanimous, ought to pass as amended. Senator Lucchini and Representative Andrews did not vote.
I think he's trying to juggle committees there.
Yeah, I'm kind of between two.
Senator Searway, are you in agreement with the language that Ms. Olson added to the resolve, just giving us the option to report out a bill and then report back to us?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. It was a quick one. Thank you.
Okay.
Ms. Olson, what number do we have coming up next?
1214, although this one is more of, I need to verbally go over some things before.
Okay.
I don't really have a show for you.
Senator Curry, can I ask that we switch off? In case we need to.
Sure can.
Thank you.
Sure can.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, so the other bill that I have to bring back, I don't have it formally written yet, mostly because I need really to run this by the committee. This is LD 1214, the act to require vehicle safety within the funeral industry. The amendment to this, which was unanimous of those present. Jody, can you pull the voting report for LD 1214? I also mentioned, you're hearing me do this. Jody's the official keeper of votes, which is why I always ask her. Mine are the rough notes, and so to go to the source is really the appropriate way to do that.
It was 11 with 2 absent being Senator Lucchini and Representative Andrews.
Okay,
so it's
thank you.
unanimous.
The amendment was to turn this into a resolve directing the department and the funeral board to develop in collaboration with all stakeholders rules to address driver safety in the transport of human remains. After discussion, the committee wanted the rules to be major substantive and a report back on the rules, on the rule or rules, January 15th of 2022. What I need approval from the committee is the following. If rules are going to be designated as major substantive, they must appear in allocated language. A major substantive rule cannot appear in a resolve. So that would be the first thing. So the way that that could be done is to add a line under the funeral board statute that says that the funeral board shall have rules or shall make rules, or that rules need to be followed by, that are developed by the board, and major substantive, and that those are major substantive rules. And then an unallocated section can be included that would contain the language directing the department to develop the rule in collaboration with stakeholders, and give it a date for the rule to be developed. So that would be the first element, would be that I would need essentially the committee to sign off on acknowledging that a major substantive rule cannot appear in a resolve. So if the desire is to continue with a major substantive rule, then that at least the portion saying that the rule is going to be created and exist has to be allocated in statute. And that the description of how to do it could appear as unallocated language.
Representative Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Addressing the first part of this, I would like to make a motion to reconsider.
Is there a second to reconsider? It's moved and seconded. We'll have a vote. All those in favor of reconsidering, can you raise your hand? 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I see 7. So we will reconsider LD 14. Are we at 1476? 1214. So the LD 1214 is back on the table. Representative Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I did hear the question, and I'd like to make a motion of ought to pass as amended, but
Senator Searway, I think you're, 1 second. Someone's got a background noise.
Got it.
There we go. Thank you.
turning this back, the resolve back to an act so that we can include major substantive rulemaking in it with the allocated and unallocated language. And also with the report back on the rulemaking be pushed out to Ms. Olson, you may have to help me out here.
Well, would you like me to talk about that?
Yes, let's talk
Okay.
about that.
Okay. So when it comes, I talked about this when the idea came up about major substantive. I let the committee know I'd have to look into this. I know that I knew at the time that there were requirements around timing. When making a major substantive rule, there are sort of deadlines for when a provisional rule needs to be implemented or submitted, excuse me, to the legislature. The date for that is the second Friday in January. And what that means is if a provisional rule is submitted within that time frame, then if the legislature doesn't act on it, the provisional rule can still go into effect. If the provisional rule is submitted outside of that period, then the legislature has to act on it for it to take place. And if the legislature didn't act on it, it wouldn't be, the provisional rule wouldn't be adopted. So that's the deadline that I was referring to. So if the desire of the committee is for this rule to actually be developed, and for the legislature to be able to act on it, and then if it doesn't act on it, to still have it go to be able to go into effect, then you would want to pick a time that was to be the rule has to be done and submitted by the second Friday in January. That, depending on how long the committee thought it would take for that rule to be developed, could be next January or the January after that. But that's, again, up to the committee to decide. But if it would be important, I think, to include a date directing, in the unallocated language, directing the funeral board to have a provisional rule developed.
Okay,
if you want to dictate that.
Right. So that being said, I would have a report back on progress of the stakeholder process, January 15th of 2022, with the rulemaking done by the whatever week that is, 2023, because I know that major substantive rulemaking does take some time, and they will need to get the stakeholder group together first before they can convene with the rulemaking.
We're still at the place of developing the ought to pass as amended motion, correct?
So that would be the motion, open to friendly amendments as we proceed forward.
Is there a second? Chair, there is a second. It's been the motion is ought to pass as amended, with the second by Representative Pebworth. Ms. Olson.
Sorry, if I may, there's one other point of clarification that I needed to address I know we've amended it now, but I think it still stands. In recommending that the board work with stakeholders, to say in collaboration with all stakeholders doesn't leave a lot of specific direction. It's been recommended that the committee may want to address who, at least in part, who some of those stakeholders should be. You can always keep a phrase, and other groups as necessary, but if you would desire specific stakeholders to be a part of that, it would may be wise to consider including specific stakeholders in the direction.
Representative Roberts, were you looking to amend or
so I would
amend that?
include stakeholders after discussions with the department, including a we'll say an industry professional or someone from the board of funeral directors. I would say a member of the public. And I would say individual with expertise from the Department of Transportation.
Chair recognizes Representative Collmore.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd also like to say that we should include in there a member from the state police or sheriff's department or some member of law enforcement because of how important they are to that process as well and understanding how that works. I just wanted to clarify with this before we moved on, and now I've lost my thought. I'm sorry. I'll raise my hand when I think of it again.
Chair
I
recognizes
thought about the
Representative.
police officer thing, and that totally wiped my brain of the other thought.
We'll come back. Chair recognizes Representative Hasselfuss.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I just, one of my comments was going to ask if we want a member of the Maine State Police, which I think from Representative Collmore's comments, that would be advisable. So I'm gathering from this amendment, it would be amendment to pass this as an act. Maybe the language would be that, we direct that the Board of Funeral Services shall develop rules, major substantive rules designed to protect the drivers and passengers within the funeral industry, something like that. And then from there, go into the resolve that we had already developed language for. Does that sound about right to everybody?
Chair recognizes Representative Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a point of clarification for the committee. The reconsideration was done in order to change the vehicle of the bill. So the resolve is still mostly remaining the same, except for the technical issues that Ms. Olson has found. We're just changing it from an act, a resolve to an act, so that we can put the major substantive rules. So if that answers Representative Hasselfuss's questions as well. The substance is still the same. We're just changing the vehicle.
Right. We do need a sentence in statute, correct?
Yes, sorry, checking. I was on to see if I was on mute. Yes, we need a sentence. The original proposal was rules to address driver safety and the transport of human remains. That was the original proposed sentence.
I think that's fine.
Chair recognizes Representative Bernard.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm just wondering if we should consider for that group, for that study, someone from the insurance industry, because there could be a fair amount of money that is talked about at the end of the game. So I just want to bring that up.
Thank you. I'd like to, we have a motion on the floor in a second, and I'd like to ask the department, as they're watching this, I'd like to ask Ms. Cohen to come into the panelists room. Ms. Breton, if you could help facilitate that. And want to get Ms. Cohen's reaction. Welcome, Ms. Cohen.
Thank you very much. Exciting trip through the wormhole. And thank you very much, members of the committee. Nice to see you all. I, first of all, would like to thank the chairs. We've been in communication with them about the timeline for this effort, especially considering the stakeholder the requested stakeholder process, and greatly appreciate having a time frame that is allows us to have enough time to work with the stakeholders, report back to the committee, and then undertake the APA, the required APA rulemaking process. On the committee may wish, or we'd recommend that there be clear statutory authority for the board. There's that transportation of human remains outside of to the final resting place be part of the board's statutory authority. At the law right now is specific to the final resting place. And so we're a little concerned about the breadth of our jurisdiction. With respect to the members of the stakeholder group, I would ask the committee just to consider that these are all going to be volunteers. And so to the extent it is, you add many requirements of individuals who we may or may not be able to get to join us, that may be challenging. We'd be happy to try. And we certainly heard the committee's request to include all. And so, we've been doing a lot of thinking about what all means, but I just wanted to raise our concern that we're asking a lot of people to volunteer their time, which we may or may not be able to get them to join us. And like Representative Collmore, I had another point I was going to make, and in making these, I have forgotten what it is, but I'm sure by the time you finish asking me questions, I will think of it.
Representative Collmore, did you have a question, or can we go to questions first and then we'll come back to you?
Sure. I really hope I don't forget it again.
Are there any questions for Ms. Cohen? Seeing none.
Yes,
now
please
I've
go remembered ahead. What it is. So I did also want to let the committee know that we have been taking this charge very seriously. It is outside of what we normally do. We have a very small board of funeral practice has a very small staff, basically 1 full-time and 2 part-time, so 2 FTEs. We are looking at hiring a facilitator to lead the stakeholder process, because much of it is outside of our expertise. I mean, we don't know anything about loads and securing loads and vehicle transport. So that's going to be quite a heavy lift for us. And so I did just want you to know that we are taking this seriously, but it is a request that falls outside of our usual understanding and jurisdiction and expertise.
Thank you. Chair recognizes Representative Collmore.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think the one thing that I was concerned about with the amendment was the timeline. And while I understand and respect the fact that it takes a while to do substantive rule changes, one of the reasons I was the one who recommended the deadline of January 15th for those rules to come out, because what I don't want, out of respect for the family that was impacted by what has made this legislation come forward, is I don't want it to drag on. And ideally, I would like the rules to come out before the second Friday in January of 2022 and not 2023. But listening to Ms. Cohen about how this is not a normal process that they would follow, I can respect that it may take longer than that. I'm concerned because I don't want it to drag on like it has already done so.
Thank you very much. Are there any more questions for Ms. Cohen? Seeing none. Chair recognizes Representative Austin. Thank you, Ms. Cohen. I just want to make sure there are no more questions for. There
I'm
are.
not sure.
So, okay, we'll keep Ms. Cohen here. Representative Austin.
Well, now that we're at this juncture, could you please remind me on the 15th, what happens at that point, and are we still able to have an up or down, I guess, vote on the work that's done? I'm a little unclear about if we're relinquishing now, if we're closing out and we're handing it off, or if we will have comment later.
Ms. Olson, would you mind addressing that?
Not at all. I thought that one might be for me. As Representative Roberts put forward in the motion on the floor right now, there would be a report back on the progress of the stakeholder work, January 15th of 2022, which is next year. There, as it stands, that would not give any power for the committee to weigh in with legislative action. The committee could make their desires known. It could write a letter. But at that point, that would really just be a report on its progress. And then the following year, which would be the 131st legislature, the department or the board would submit a provisional rule. And at that point, that provisional rule as a major substantive rule would be up for review by the legislature, by the committee. So the final, technically not final. So they develop a rule, it's called a provisional rule because it's not yet authorized by the legislature as a major substantive rule. So the rule would have to be done to be submitted. And then there'd be oversight by the legislature on that rule. So they could make changes at that point if they were not satisfied with the provisional rule.
Would I be correct in part of the process would leave this term then, and it would go into a brand new term of the legislative session, be the 131st. Would that be correct?
Yes, as it stands,
So
the suggestion would be.
So I guess what I would share is that with the amount of work that has been put into this and the concern by everyone, does anyone else feel that then hands this off to the possibility of reacquainting, who knows? And this is not about elections, it's about who returns to this committee in a new term. So I offer that for consideration. I mean, this really could push things out quite a ways. So if anybody can help react to that and share your thoughts, I really would appreciate it.
Chair recognizes Representative Hassenfuss.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll start by trying to address Ms. Austin's concern, and I share that same concern that I think both you and Representative Callamore have. I also understand that this may take a little bit of time to put together substantive rules, and we want those rules to be done well and to really take into consideration the safety of the drivers and, you know, the burdens that are going to be put on the funeral industry. And I do trust that the, you know, task force working on this will in good faith implement these rules. And if everything is done right, in theory, could come back in the 131st with the proposed rules. And if nothing is done, they become rules. Or, you know, if the legislature wants to address them, they can change them there. I would be open to something different. I'm just not sure if there's a way to give them the adequate time to do their job well and have this legislature weigh in after reviewing that. I'm not aware of if that's a possibility. If there's anybody who can speak on that, that would be helpful. And then I just had one question for Ms. Cohen as well. My question is, you mentioned that you would like the board to have statutory authority to regulate all the transportation of human remains where it's ambiguous as to what extent it has the authority to regulate the current pickup and transportation. And a simple line in the rulemaking authority saying that, in the statute saying that the board has authority over, the transportation of human remains from day one, essentially, would satisfy that request. Is that right?
Yes, I have to admit, I don't have I hadn't, I'm embarrassed to say I hadn't anticipated the specific language, but I'm wondering if just eliminating the words that say to the final resting place wouldn't satisfy the ability to have jurisdiction in all situations.
Chair recognizes Representative Hassenfuss.
Yeah.
Sorry, Representative Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. To kind of echo Representative Hassenfuss and address Representative Austin and Colomer's concerns, I had the same, but because we are asking them to, one, engage a stakeholder group, then two, engage in rulemaking, it would literally be, time travel would need to be involved in order for this to be done by January, where we're halfway through the year already. Just getting the stakeholder group together can take some time. So I do share the frustration that we will not see this back to us. We will, however, get a report back on its progress, which will give us something to know what's going on. And I would ask Ms. Olson and include in my motion, if Representative Hepworth, I think second, to add the language giving the board the authority to do the rulemaking by taking out the final destination.
Okay, I'm also just hearing and thinking about this. So I might come back with a different thought. My not being as familiar with the funeral industry as I could be, if we took that out, if we just took out to the place of burial or cremation, it would mean that the practice of funeral service would incorporate transportation of human remains, period. That would mean anyone transporting human remains other than an authorized person, which is defined as like a family member, etc., would then have to be licensed to practice funeral service. I am not aware if anyone that's not a licensed practitioner of funeral service is involved in the transport of human remains for other reasons. I know that many who are licensed take on that role, but I would imagine that there are other services or individuals or businesses that transport human remains for other who also work on that element of the industry. So if we just made that change, that wouldn't be requiring anyone other than an authorized person who moves a human body to be licensed. So that would not be perhaps the best way to achieve that. If we're really just talking about the funeral industry, the people who are licensed practitioners of funeral service to have to follow the rules that are being made, it might make more sense to include, I think they get the statutory authority by being directed to develop the rule related to it. I'm thinking that the best place to put it is probably under the powers and duties of the board. The board has the authority to develop these rules. The board has already developed rules about funeral attendants who are licensed under the practitioners, and they're authorized to, so funeral attendants can do some of the things that someone licensed as a practitioner of funeral service can do, but not everything. They have a more limited scope. And in granting what a funeral attendant can do, that is also done by a practitioner of funeral service. One of those is the transport of human bodies in general, like from the place of death, for example, and not just to the end site. So some rules are already made but again, it is an ambiguous, like they're made because it happens, and there really isn't clearly the statutory authority. But by telling them to make rules about it, I think that that would grant the statutory authority that they're looking for, and not without necessarily having to change the definition. But if we wanted to look at that, I mean, because there is an ambiguity there. We could look at some other language that we could add to the definition that would make it, that could adjust that, but I would need some time to think about that.
So we are in a posture of Representative Roberts is proposing an amendment, or an adjustment to her amendment. Representative Roberts, based on what you've just heard, how do you want to proceed?
I would say giving the board statutory authority pending language review on how that would, how Ms. Olson.
So you could just make it, and because we're going to get this back on language review again, because it's a reconsideration.
Right.
Right. So, okay. So do you want to, so giving them, and so we'll see how we gave them statutory authority, and that can come back on language review. Is that what you mean? Okay. Representative Pebworth, are you in agreement?
Yes, that's fine.
Okay. That's not a vote, so I think I can count that with your camera off. So Chair recognizes Representative Hassenfuss.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Ms. Olson, we're talking about the vehicles used by the funeral industry. So the regulation could be with the use of the vehicles too. It doesn't necessarily have to be like whether you're transporting them from the place, where the person died to the funeral home versus from the funeral home to the final resting place. It could just be if the vehicle used for transport is a vehicle owned or leased by the funeral company, that could be the trigger that falls, that falls within the board and regulation. So it doesn't necessarily have to be at what point in the transportation process, but in what vehicle is it being transported with.
Chair recognizes Representative Austin.
Okay, did Ms. Cohen go away? Because, oh no,
Nope,
she's
still
do
here.
you want to go ahead, Joan? You go ahead of me, and then I still want to just bring up a couple things. Did you have a question or something you wanted to share with us? Go ahead.
We're going to get to her, but that's fine now. Go ahead. Ms. Cohen,
I
go
just
ahead.
thought maybe she might need to time-wise.
Just with leave of the chair, if that's okay. I just wanted to offer to work with the Assistant Attorney General for the board and Ms. Olson to draft language that would be appropriate. Ms. Olson identified that what I shared was had its challenges, and I agree. And rather than spend the time on that now, I was going to offer to provide that service to the committee.
Thank you very much. Representative Austin, did you had a couple thoughts?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, please. Ms. Cohen, I'm wondering, this seems like it would be obvious, but sometimes when you're in the throes of all this, some things aren't. The language that I want, and working on that language, I was just thinking about the actual, you have to remember there comes a time when particular remains, be it ashes, would be transported received by a family and then transported. I wouldn't want there to ever be any implication in overarching language that they all of a sudden then are receiving something they can't then proceed to have a ceremony to take care of. So that would be one thought. the other thought is, and again, when I say about another legislature handling it, my concern really would be, I wish we could do something different, not because I'm ever in any hurry to force regulatory language that is not well thought, but I'm just thinking about everything that would have to all be brought up and shared with an entirely, perhaps quite entirely new committee, just in regards to, family, et cetera, et cetera. And I just wondered, would there be any possibility of an April 22 date working? Done.
Ms. Cohen?
So the preference would definitely be 2023. The APA process in and of itself is a very time heavy process. I mean, to allow for public participation, notice, etc. That said, we hear the committee's desires, and so our goal would be to, not just share where we're at in January 15th, but bring this as far as we can. So you will see our efforts and progress and direction. I do worry about, especially given the stakeholder process and the time that will involve, putting a time constraint that's much shorter than offered by Representative Roberts.
Thank you, Ms. Cohen. Are there any other comments? Seeing none, we have a motion on the floor that's been seconded. Are we ready for a vote?
Could we review the motion on the floor, please?
We certainly can, and I see that there are a couple more comments. Would you like to review the motion first, Representative Bernard? Okay. Well, let's walk through the motion again.
Oh, okay, here's what I have, and I wasn't sure where we ended with some of the additions. So to allocate the major substantive rule, so we're going to move forward with it as it's originally written as an act. So allocating the major substantive rule, including an unallocated section, directing the board to develop the rule in conjunction with stakeholders. My question is that in collaboration with or to consult with, which means slightly different things. And then I have an industry professional or licensed or a licensed practitioner, member of the public, an individual with expertise from DOT. And then I wasn't sure if we added state police or a member of the insurance industry. And is it yes on both?
I would say yes on both and consult with, given the department's concerns about getting a commitment for a long period of time from a volunteer, because I believe that's the difference. Collaborate pulls them in for the entire process, right? Whereas consulting would pull them in for their expertise.
I mean, yes, it's definitely a subjective interpretation, but collaboration would indicate a stronger relationship and perhaps more time, whereas consult could just include also calling and asking an opinion on something.
Yeah, I would put consult because in rulemaking, there also is a public hearing.
And then the amendment also included a report back to IDEA on the progress of the stakeholder work and any version of a bill or a law that, of a rule that has been created by January 15th of 2022, which is next year. And then what's called a provisionally adopted rule being submitted within the rule acceptance period, which is between July 1st and the second Friday of January. So it has to be submitted by the second Friday in January of 2023. So that's what I have. That's what I have as the motion. And so I know there were a couple of other things discussed, and I'm not sure if they were included or not.
Representative Roberts?
I can't think of anything else unless I'm.
And then do I have the permission to work with the,
Yes.
with Joan Cohen and their representatives?
Ms. Olson, do you have what you need?
I do now, yes.
Great. Chair recognizes Representative Bernard.
Thank you very much, Chair Curry. I don't know if this is the time to say it. I would respectfully disagree with Representative Roberts, or ask for a friendly amendment that we use the word collaborate so that it is discussion throughout trying to come up with this change, which would be substantive before it's brought back to the committee, because we're going to be back into a position where we'll have a piece of legislation that is still very, I'm afraid, contentious if it is not worked on together originally before it's brought back for hearing, etc.
That's fine.
So collaborate, you're fine with that?
Mm-hmm.
And Representative Penworth, you're fine with that?
I am as well. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Chair recognizes Senator Searway.
I guess I'd like to know the list of stakeholders because, you know, in the law, we don't really have, we have a loose load on the outside, but not on the inside of vehicles. And cause anything in an accident can be thrown or whatever. And it's a difficult situation, I think. And I'm thinking that there's got to be somehow motor vehicle, a company that for safety checks or how they test or whatever has to have some input, and I don't know where that is.
Senator Searway, I believe part of the stakeholder group to be included would be a person with expertise from DOT.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting because how do you measure on the accident? And but anyway, I'm still very leery on this bill, and I think it's the statistics are not. I don't know. It's just a difficult thing to measure. Anyway, I'm still leery on it. I'd still be ought not to pass on it on my end.
Chair recognizes Representative Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ms. Olson, is there still language in there that has a stakeholder group and then it says and other parties as deemed appropriate or something like that? Is that still in there?
I can add the and other parties as appropriate or as necessary.
Okay, I didn't remember if that was in the original amendment or not, but I think that would be appropriate to add in so that if, for example, they were looking to consult with someone in the auto industry, as Senator Searway is recommending, they have the ability to do so.
Chair recognizes lots of hands. Representative Bernard.
Thank you very much. I was wondering, Senator, if we could have a 5-minute caucus, 5 to 10 minute caucus and bring it back for the vote.
Sure. Let's see if there are any other comments before we do that. Representative Hassenfuss.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to comment, Senator Searway, on your concern there. And anything that's traveling in interstate commerce, there's federal regulations like, for instance, in trailer trucks and things like that. And there's been studies based on, force and things like that. And so there are tie down requirements and certain load securing requirements based on data and accident information that have reasonable restrictions on them. And, and it doesn't say it can't ever become dislodged or anything like that. It just says, you need to be able to withstand certain forces, something like that. So that information is available and it is out there, and there are people who know it. And as part of this process, I think that this working group will be able to ascertain that if they feel that it's necessary.
Chair recognizes Representative Austin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Actually, I am somewhat echoing Representative Hassifis' remarks to the good senator, because I think this is the very thing that will be found to be somewhat challenging, is to actually how apply the inside weight load confinement that is a little bit unusual. So I think that hopefully that we will find that with this study and with that language of being able to bring, particularly if we find some expert guests, they can be asked into the language. So I think it kind of behooves the whole question that we've really been challenged with. Can we work on something that will bring some semblance of oversight that people can feel comfortable with moving forward to hopefully ward off another accident of this type. So thank you very much.
Seeing oh, Representative Bernard. No. Yes, Chair recognizes Representative Bernard.
I'm sorry. Before we go into the caucus, can we have a reading of what the motion will be exactly one more time? I'm sorry.
Ms. Olson, would you mind walking us through it?
Yes, okay. So the bill will remain an act. It will contain, most likely in the section of statute related to the board, allocated language that will say that the board is going to develop rules, or that the board has rules related to the transport of human remains, although I'll note that it may be better at this point. I've been told I can work with the department. We may come back with using the word dead bodies rather than human remains. Human remains does include cremated individuals. But to develop that language that gives the board the power and authority to develop rules related to the transport of human bodies that address driver safety. The rules are major substantive rules. And then in the unallocated section, it would direct the funeral board in collaboration with the following stakeholders: a representative of the funeral service profession who is licensed under the board, a member of the public, an individual with expertise related to cargo transportation from the Department of Transportation, a representative of the state police, and a representative of the insurance industry, and other parties as necessary. The funeral board will report back to the IDEA committee on its progress with the stakeholders and the development of the rule by January 15th of 2022. And the provisionally adopted rule must be submitted no later than the what is the in time deadline for major substantive rules, so no later than the second Friday in January of 2023. And that's the amendment put forward, just with the permission for myself to work with the funeral board on the allocated language designating that authority.
that clear, Representative Bernard? Did you have any questions, Representative Bernard?
Sorry, I just want to repeat, is this an act to create a resolve or an act to go ahead and make the changes?
So,
I'm sorry.
sorry, no, that's fine. The bill that was, so the LD 1214 is an act. It was amended by the committee previously to turn it into a resolve, which, because the amendment that included major substantive rules, it couldn't move forward as a resolve. A resolve is temporary, and you can't put a major substantive rule as something temporary. So I just wanted to make clear that we're not turning the resolve back into an act. It's an act to start with. So this is an amendment to the original bill. So it's just moving forward as an act. And the language that was in the resolve is now going to be an unallocated language. Unallocated language has the force of law, but it just disappears after time because it's not written into statute directly. So it's good for temporary things, such as directing the department to do the work with the stakeholders on this to develop the rule.
Thank you.
Yes.
Representative Deschamps.
Just so that I'm clear, I just want to make sure we have in the act itself, 1214, there's all kinds of language about vehicle safety and floors and platforms and fines and all the rest of that stuff. Does that go away and we use the resolve except we change it to an act?
Yes. Yeah. So we're striking the text of the original bill, but the vehicle, meaning that it's an act, will remain. So you're not turning the act into a resolve. There is, you can't turn a resolve back into an act, which is why I wanted to make sure we were clear on that, the sort of the technical portion of that. But you can turn an act into a resolve. So I just wanted to make sure that we were comfortable with the idea that it's still an act, but we're removing all of the original language from it and instead replacing it with this amendment. But it's still going to be an act. The title can actually remain the same. But instead, we're going to put it in a different section of statute under the board, most likely. And the only portion that's actually going to be allocated to the statutes is that they have the authority to make a rule about this, and that the rule is major substantive.
Representative Bernard, or would you like to caucus? Go into caucus? Okay. So you mentioned 5 or 10 minutes. How long would you like to take? So we'll meet back at 11:35.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay. welcome back. If members of the committee could either turn on their cameras or raise their digital hands, we'll know if we are back. Looks like we're not quite all back yet.
Senator Curry? We're going to be a few more minutes.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
All right. Thanks.
Welcome back, everybody. It looks like we're back out of caucus. May I ask if members can either raise their hand or turn on their camera so we can confirm people are here. Looks like we have a quorum. So are we ready for the motion? Well, we already have the motion, so the motion on the floor. I guess I meant, are we ready for the vote? I'll recognize Senator Searway.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think, I just want to make sure that it has substantive rule in there, rulemaking. If it does, then I'm fine with it.
And I will confirm that it's my understanding that the charges for the department to create substantive rules, and those rules will be substantive. Is that correct, Ms. Olson?
Yes, it's directing them to develop major substantive rules, and I'm happy to put what that means specifically up on the screen as well.
That would be
just
great.
so everyone can see. So when we do this, what does that mean? Okay, let me do that now. I sent this out following the last work session on this bill when it was brought up, and so I just wanted to put this out here. So again, it's up to the legislature to decide what rules are routine technical and what rules are major substantive. I mean, there's certainly some guidelines in statute, but it is ultimately a policy decision by the legislature. So legislative review of major substantive rules, the procedure and useful criteria is outlined here in Title 5, Section 8072, Paragraph 4. But essentially how this works is after reviewing the rule and the corresponding resolve, so once the rule is submitted, it's turned into a resolve and referred to the committee with jurisdiction over the rule's subject matter. So after reviewing the rule and the corresponding resolve, the committee can vote in the following 3 ways. That they can authorize to finally adopt the provisionally adopted rule as drafted by the agency, adopt it only in part, or adopt it contingent upon the agency making changes to the rule.
Yeah.
So that does those elements. And also that the agency not be authorized to finally adopt the provisional rule. So that would come at the review of this committee. I talked about timing. So there is a timeline for submission for rules for review, and that begins on January 1st before each regular session and ends at 5 p.m. on the second Friday in January after the convening of that regular session. So that would be July 1st of 2022 and the second Friday in January of 2023. So that's when, if we wanted it within the rule acceptance period, the provisional rule would need to come within that timeline. And the real difference here between being submitted within the time frame and being submitted outside that time frame is really what happens when the legislature doesn't act. So if the legislature fails to act, the agency may finally adopt the rule as drafted. Versus if it comes late, then if the legislature fails to act, the agency may not finally adopt the rule. So that's the real difference in that timeline piece that I was talking about. And then in the case of major substantive rules, once reviewed and adopted by the legislature, the agency can finally adopt the rule with any required amendments within 60 days of the effective date of the legislation approving the rule. So that's the overview of major substantive versus routine technical, where you just tell them to go do it. They do it, they do their rulemaking process. They submit those rules, but only as not as a formal review. We get those rules coming in. The committees get rules as they're made coming in from the departments, but without the official oversight of major substantive.
Thank you, Ms. Olson.
Yeah.
If you could stop sharing. Are we ready for a vote? It looks like we are. So the motion is ought to pass as amended and the amendment's been spelled out. I will ask Ms. Breton to call the roll.
Okay. So Representative Geiger, I think, is absent. Representative McDonald.
Yes.
Representative McDonald, yes. Representative Pebworth.
Yes.
Representative Pebworth, yes. Representative Collmore.
Sorry, my mute button's having an issue. Yes.
Representative Collmore, yes. Senator Lucchini is absent. Senator Seaway. He's on the other one, I'd say right now. Representative Ducharme.
Yes.
Representative Ducharme, yes. Representative Austin.
May I make just a point of order?
Representative Austin, go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I noticed that we have an unfamiliar representative here with us voting, and I'm sure there is a good reason. Could that be explained to us?
Sure, there was if you check your email, you'll see that we have had a new assignment. So there's a new assignment of members.
All right, thank you very much. I vote in the affirmative.
Thank you. Representative Austin, yes. Representative Hassenfuss?
Yes.
Representative Hassenfuss, yes. Representative Bailey?
Yes.
Representative Bailey, yes. Representative Bernard?
Yes.
Representative Bernard, yes. Representative Roberts?
Yes.
Representative Roberts, yes. Senator Curry?
Yes.
Senator Curry, yes. Senator Seaway?
Senator Seaway. This is new territory for committee work.
Oops, he's looking.
He's Senator Seaway. We're at the roll call.
Yes.
Yes.
Senator
Thank
Seaway,
you.
yes.
Thank you.
That's 11 in the affirmative with 2 absent.
With 11 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, and 2 absent, the report will be ought to pass as amended, and we will see this probably Thursday on language review. Well, I don't want to speak to Ms. Olson. That might be longer than that. I'm sorry.
Well, my goal is Thursday, so set a
Excellent.
high bar. I just wanted to mention that we have both Mr. Norbert and Ms. Pingree in the attendees list, and I know they're both quite busy today, have a very short time span. So just wanted to let you know if you'd like to hear from them, we might want to consider doing that now.
Let's bring in both today for and come back to the language review for I can't recall the number.
LD 1005.
LD 1005. Thank you. Welcome, Ms. Pingree and Mr. Norbert. We have we're working on LD 1005, and it was set up to be a study, but our analysts just informed us we gave no one the job of studying it, and so we're working on that. This is the bill that is modeled after the Alfond program to expand wealth by via investment in savings accounts at birth that can be used later in life. And so it was a shift into a study, and the committee didn't want to give what has the nature of the conversation in deciding who was FAME and GOPIF together, or if and I having heard GOPIF's position earlier around the youth group or the youth commission, I was concerned about your interest and ability to be involved in that. So I guess I will start with GoPIF. Ms. Pingree, do you have a position on that in terms of the being involved in a study related to this?
Yeah, thank you, Senator. And I'm sorry we weren't paying closer attention. We're all having a hard time keeping up with everything happening this week. I did just quickly look at it, and I mean, I don't know, I don't have a position. Obviously, it looks like a good thing to look into. I would just say, for Bill's benefit, I think FAME would do a great job. I mean, I would say I think the governor's position is she'd rather not see studies assigned, and we have a very small team that's fully maxed out. So I think anything would require funding to actually figure out a consultant, or we do not have expertise in this arena, I guess I would say, on staff that's prepared to do it. So again, I have not spoken to the governor. I don't know if she has an opinion on this. I would say it would be hard to pull off without outside resources to find a way to do it. And again, I will put Mr. Norbert on the hot seat and just say, I think FAME clearly has more expertise in, you know, savings for families and kids. So I know that's maybe a non-answer. I can't say that we could pull it off without additional funding.
Thank you. Ms. Norbert, have you been able to take a look at this bill?
Yes.
And I think you gave testimony on it earlier. Would this be something that could be in the wheelhouse of FAME for a study?
I actually have the same answer as my friend, Ms. Pingree. I'm sorry to disappoint the committee, but this is quite a broad concept and idea. And we are also overwhelmed with off-session work that we're going to have with new programs from other bills that you've heard, and rulemaking, et cetera. I think it is, you know, if this were a study for us to participate in, that's another story. We'd be happy to. We'd be happy to talk about the Alfond $500 for baby program for college savings. But this is bigger than that. And if you look at all the different folks who were going to participate and the different perspectives and expertise they bring, to just send it to FAME, I just can't tell you that it would be a quality product, and we want to produce quality products. We probably would have to hire outside resources because we are maxed out as well at this time. So this isn't something, I don't believe I did testify on this. This isn't something we had followed carefully. I was aware of the bill, but I just thought it was outside of our ken because these baby bonds, as you know, are so much bigger and different than just a college savings account. And so, yeah, we really would rather we found another way to do this respectfully.
Thank you. Thank you. Are there any other questions for either Mr. Norbert or Ms. Pingree?
Can I ask you, Senator, just quickly, is there a reason why you don't want to send it to the special study table? Just stack it up with other legislative studies and see if legislative council prioritizes it?
I think right now that is certainly on the table of what to do, but it's still a matter of identifying who, if we send it to the legislative study, would be involved in that. And I think we're just looking at our options right now. So I appreciate it. So seeing no other questions, thank you very much. I know you're probably in 3 different Zooms right now, or actually meeting people live. So
thank you so much. Have a great day.
Thank you. Same.
Given that response, what I would propose is that we bring this up for language review on Thursday and give any members of the committee and the bill sponsor an opportunity to bring something back to us. Is there an openness to that of the committee members, or an opposition to that? I'm open. I'm trying to think what's possible here. Representative Bailey.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd be glad to, I'm a co-sponsor of this bill. I'd be glad to try to work with the bill sponsor to see if there's a path forward to house this somewhere. So I'm happy to work on that today and tomorrow.
If I also may interject, I just, as the bill was originally written, since it involves legislative resources, it is considered a legislative study despite its title creating a commission. So just as it's written, as it was originally written, because it uses legislative resources, in particular, has 6 members of the legislature on it. It is a legislative study as originally drafted. And if the committee would like, I could run through the original language and compare it with the joint rules just to see if there are any conflicts with as it's drafted and the joint rules surrounding legislative studies, if they would like that.
Would you like that now, or members, would you like to dive into that now, or would you like to dive into it on Thursday?
Oh, sorry, I did mean on Thursday. I want to
Oh,
sit
on
down
Thursday.
and just compare
Great.
them closely, if that's something the committee would like me to bring back.
That would be helpful. I think also I have a question about the nature of the commission, whether Representative Ducharme's earlier concern of whether by establishing it can a commission end right away, or do you call it something else? Ultimately, we're looking for a group to study this, not necessarily looking for a group to exist over a long time.
As the bill is originally drafted, it does have a report date of December 1st, 2021, reporting their findings and recommendations. Again, this is something I would compare with the joint rule because I believe that would be outlined.
That would end it?
Yeah, that would end it. And then additionally, well, it has an outside funding, section 8, that the commission should seek outside funding to fully fund the cost of the study. If sufficient contributions to fund the study have not been received within 30 days after the effective date of this resolve, no meetings are authorized and no expenses of any kind may be incurred or reimbursed. So the creation of it is dependent on funding. Of course, that's true of legislative studies as well. But, so that's something I certainly will double check for the committee and Representative Ducharme in particular. But my understanding is it's not permanent. This isn't the establishment of a permanent commission. That it's a study.
Representative Hassenfuss? You're on mute.
How much do I owe you? I was, Miss Olson, I was just having trouble finding the YouTube link. I don't know if you have easy access to that, or if anybody has that easily. I'd like to just look at our work session to see what our thought process was.
I can find that and email it out to the committee.
If it's not too much work, that'd be great. Thanks.
I will, my own memory, which is not great for all of these bills together, is that some of the discussion around this may have come from caucus, but I'm not sure.
If there is no further, it's not on the table, so we don't have to take it off the table. We don't have to table it. We'll finish up language review on Thursday on this one. That will be the intention. Are there other bills for language review?
No, that was my pile for today. We do need to meet on Thursday for language review as well. And then depending on how things go on Thursday, we can determine what needs to happen after that.
Great.
I will continue to send emails of things that don't require direct feedback from the committee. So please be aware of your emails from me. In particular, at your direction, I am sending them out one at a time and not lumped together. I don't necessarily need your response, but certainly if you can respond, although it fills my inbox, it is reassuring to know that everyone has seen it. So thank you to those of you who have responded. And if there is an issue, certainly you can respond with a question, but that would just indicate I should bring it back in person. So.
Having covered all the work of the day, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Seconded. Representative Collmore, all in favor. Go out and enjoy a beautiful day. Thank you all.